Morning, Chair and Commissioners. There's no changes to this morning's agenda.
I know that probably a lot of curiosity as to why. Now I'm on. I know there's probably a lot of curiosity as to why we're not proceeding today with the Clean Energy Fund and the Utility Energy Efficiency Program. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain why they are no longer on the agenda. Obviously, both the Clean Energy Fund and the Utilities Energy Efficiency Programs are incredibly important pillars of the REV process. And while we had planned to take the matters up today, we made a determination that they were really not quite ready. And the reason is that because these programs are actually so important to us, I wanted to make sure that we were examining all the issues. They're important, obviously, for our consumers as well as producers and suppliers. And so we made a determination that rather than handle with them today, we would delay them. Now, I want to be clear, it is absolutely our intent to pursue these programs. Nobody should read anything into this delay other than these are complex matters, important matters for the state energy policy, and it's important that we get it right. Now, in the interim, I am going to ask staff to continue to work with NYSERDA and the utilities because we do not want any disruption into continuing programs. And we expect to be handling this as soon as possible. But again, don't read anything into this. It's only a matter of the fact that these matters are critical to the state. We have to get them right, and it's more important that we take the time to do that. So that is why they're not on the agenda. And with that, I'm going to turn to our first item, which is 101A, and it's in the matter of the investigation relating to the March 12th explosion in New York. And I think Kevin Speicher, who's the chief pipeline safety, and Diane Dean are going to be presenting that to us. So welcome, and please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Zibelman and Commissioners. I'm here to present the results of the investigation into the explosion and collapse of the buildings at 1644 and 1646 Park Avenue in East Harlem in New York City on March 12, 2014. This is in the gas service territory of Consolidated Edison. This incident involved 8 fatalities, approximately 50 injuries, and the displacement of over 100 families in the area of the explosion. The department fielded 2 staff teams to investigate this incident. One staff team was charged with assisting the Federal National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation into the probable cause of the incident. Although the NTSB does not have formal authority to regulate the transportation industry, it conducts thorough independent investigations of transportation accidents. The NTSB develops factual records and typically makes recommendations from these investigations to improve transportation safety. The other staff team conducted the state's investigation and looked to find the root cause of the incident and to determine whether any Con Ed actions or facilities were causative or contributory to the incident and determine whether New York's gas safety regulations and commission policies were followed before, during, and after the incident. The NTSB report has been issued and is available to the public. Today, I will report on the results of the staff team investigation. This was a complex investigation that primarily involved staff assigned to our New York City office and Albany office, but touched all of our staff. I will focus on a timeline that includes 4 distinct periods. The first will focus on the period of time leading up to the installation of the service to 1642 Park Avenue in December of 2011. The next will focus on the period of time from the installation of this service until the incident on March 12, 2014. The third period will focus on actions that took place during the incident, and the last will focus on the time period after the incident. Pre-installation. In 2001, a New York City Department of Environmental Protection SOAR camera inspection of the SOAR main running along Park Avenue identified missing bricks. In December 2011, in accordance with Con Ed procedures and New York gas safety requirements, Con Edison replaced a section of cast iron main with plastic and fused a new 2-inch plastic gas service to serve 1642 Park Avenue. post-installation but pre-incident. In July of 2013, Con Ed conducted a mobile leakage survey of Park Avenue. No leaks were found. On February 28th, Con Ed conducted a winter frost leakage survey over the cast iron on Park Avenue. This included the section of gas main that was replaced in 2011. No leaks were found. Both of these leakage surveys were conducted as part of Con Ed's normal operation and maintenance activities and were not in response to any leak or odor complaint. On March 5th, 2014, New York City DEP conducted a water leakage survey on Park Avenue. Again, no leaks were found. March 9th, New York City DOT made road repairs of a sinkhole in front of 1646 Park Ave. Several sinkholes were made in the same area between 2004 and 2014. On March 12th, approximately 19 minutes before the explosion, Con Ed received a report of a gas odor from a resident of 1652 Park Avenue. There were no other records of odor calls discovered during the investigation. While Con Ed personnel were en route, the buildings at 1644 and 1646 Park Avenue exploded. Incident response. Staff investigation of the incident response determined that upon receiving the odor call immediately prior to the incident, the company dispatch representative dispatched personnel to respond to the odor complaint. However, the dispatch representative failed to follow emergency guidelines to request fire department assistance for a report of gas inside and outside of a gas building as reported by the caller. Because the company did not install an isolation valve during the 2011 main replacement adjacent to 1642 Park Avenue as required by company procedures to minimize the isolation area during emergencies, company personnel were needed to dig 3 fire banks to stop the flow of gas to the incident site. To be clear, the installation of the valve would not have prevented this incident, but could have reduced the amount of time needed to shut the flow of gas to the incident site. Post-incident. Following the incident, as detailed previously in the Commission order in Case 14G0212, Con Edison reviewed the qualifications of all their fusers and initiated a company-wide stand-down while the company and contractor personnel were properly qualified. In addition, Con Edison continues to perform assessments on plastic fusions made during the periods of qualification non-compliance. After the incident, Con Ed made changes to its public awareness program. These changes include an increase in frequency of messaging urging customers to report gas odors and added the option of dialing 911 to report these gas odors. Con Edison and National Grid have worked with New York City to advance protocols for response to gas odors. This cooperation assures that companies are notified of any gas leaks reported via 911. Finally, Con Ed has increased system-wide leakage surveys to a frequency of 1 per month. This frequency exceeds regulatory requirements. Summary of the investigation. Staff team investigation determined that the sewer below the gas main along Park Avenue was breached, allowing backfill to erode, removing support from below the gas main in front of 1642 Park Avenue. This caused a fuse connecting a 2-inch service tee in front of 1642 Park Avenue to the 8-inch plastic gas main to fail, allowing gas to escape. Analysis by the NTSB pointed to incomplete fusion caused by contamination of the fusion service. In addition, both investigations agree that the fuse did not meet visual acceptance criteria. While the only leak reported to Con Ed New York City 311 or 911 preceding the incident was reported immediately prior to the incident, staff interviews of people nearby the incident determined that several people smelled gas prior to the incident. In addition, following the incident, significant gas readings were found along Park Avenue. Staff determined that the qualification of the contractor performing the plastic fusion to the service to 1642 Park Avenue on December 28th had lapsed 1 month prior to the installation of the service. In addition, the contractor was not properly qualified during initial qualification testing or during any subsequent requalification for fusing a service tee, because the qualification testing did not include a destructive examination of a test fuse. Finally, the procedure being used to fuse the service tee had not been properly qualified. As discussed in the previous plastic fusion order, Con Edison has taken steps to be sure that persons performing plastic fusion are qualified according to the requirements of Part 255.285. Staff was not able to find any evidence that a visual inspection of the fuse was conducted prior to the energizing the service line. Visual examination of the fuse after the incident shows that it should not have been placed into service. Finally, Con Edison procedures were not followed when the tracer wire was wrapped around the service tee. It should be noted that in addition to the failure of the fuse to the 1642 service, a small crack was found in the body of the service tee. NTSB analysis determined that this crack was caused post-incident. Calculations of potential flow rates through the crack support this analysis. Recommendations. To help assure that the safety of the Con Edison gas system, in this report, staff is making a series of recommendations to Con Edison. These recommendations address areas of concern discovered by staff during the investigation. First, during routine operations and maintenance work, Con Edison should document any significant road depressions, sinkholes, and uneven road paving conditions which may potentially pose a threat to Con Ed gas facilities. Con Ed should follow up such observations by notifying the municipal agencies responsible so that potential threats to underground utilities can be addressed before they become a serious threat. Next, Con Edison should ensure strict compliance with its operator qualification plan. This should be verified through a robust quality assurance program. Con Edison shall increase QA/QC inspections of construction, operations, and maintenance activities. And Con Edison shall review the adequacy of all distribution system valve placements and address any deficiencies to minimize hazards to life and property and to reduce the amount of time needed to shut down sections during an emergency. Finally, Con Edison should continuously evaluate the effectiveness of its public awareness program and explore additional measures to increase its effectiveness. Given these findings made during this investigation, I now turn the presentation over to Diane Dean for further discussion on Commission action.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome, Diane.
Good morning, Chair Zibelman and Commissioners. Kevin has described what staff has concluded were the facility failures that caused the East Harlem explosion. The department's incident report has been filed with the Secretary and will be posted to the public docket in this case. Based on the facts in the department's report, staff also believes that sufficient evidence exists to conclude that violations of Commission gas safety regulations did occur. Therefore, staff recommends the Commission issue the order to show cause before you, which requires Con Edison to respond to staff's conclusions. Staff identified 11 regulatory failures associated with the incident. Staff believes that some of those caused or contributed to the incident and some did not. For instance, at the time the fusion was completed, Con Edison had in place qualifying procedures that were not entirely consistent with what is required in Commission regulations. Commission rules require that only persons who have been trained using all the required training components may complete plastic fusions. The worker who completed the fusion that separated, however, had not completed the destructive testing component of the required training procedures. Therefore, staff believes the plastic fusion had not been completed in accordance with Commission regulations. Another example of a violation staff identified is that Con Edison failed to repair or replace the fusion that should not have passed a visual inspection, as Kevin described. Staff concluded that Con Edison failed to remove and replace that fusion from the date it was placed into service on December 28, 2011, until the date of the incident, March 12, 2014. With respect to Con Edison violations that occurred on the day of the incident, among other things, Staff believes Con Edison violated its own procedures in not calling the fire department of the City of New York after receiving a two-odor call. That is, the person who reported the odor the building at 1652 reported smelling the odor inside his apartment and outside. Under Con Edison procedures, that's considered a two-odor call. Con Edison did call the FDNY, but instead of asking for fire department backup, Con Edison ended the call. Given these types of regulatory failures, staff believes the next most effective step in the enforcement process is to issue an order to show cause. The draft order requires Con Edison to demonstrate why penalty actions under Public Service Law Sections 25 and 25A, as well as a prudence proceeding, should not be commenced for violations of gas safety regulations in Parts 255 and 262. The draft order does not prejudge or make any commission determinations of law or fact. Rather, it obligates Con Edison to provide justification, if any exists, for the company's actions or inactions related to the East Harlem incident and the regulations that apply. Based upon that response, and if the facts warrant, the Commission could proceed with any one or all of the following: either authorizing counsel to proceed in Supreme Court in a civil action under Public Service Law Section 25, commencing a Commission administrative enforcement proceeding under Public Service Law Section 25A, or commencing a prudence proceeding by which the Commission, after further hearing, could disallow and rates any costs the Commission decides Con Edison had imprudently incurred. The order allows Con Edison 30 days to respond. Staff will come back to the Commission for any further action in this case. Kevin and I are prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. So let me just start off. I think I speak for everybody in this room, and in all of our various capacities as parents, children, grandparents, siblings, coworkers, friends, that these types of incidents are horrific, and we all, I think, feel the tragedy. And I know that's shared by the companies as well as people in this room, and we're not going to forget that. We, though, at the department and also at the Commission, have another role as regulators. And our jobs as regulators are to try to understand these industries and also understand the dangers inherent in them and make sure that we develop the rules that keep people as safe as possible, because that is our principal job. And it's so in that context, not only do we need to make sure that the rules are right, we need to make sure that they're complied with in all their fidelity. And then when things like this happen, we need to understand the root cause, and we need to think about what changes need to be made to make sure that people remain safe. So, with that, certainly I'm prepared, and I believe that staff here has done a very thorough job of looking at what happened. I would say that a lot of us at this Commission really appreciate the department, the work particularly of our gas safety staff, because of how difficult this was for them at a very personal level. So I know this is very tough, and I'm usually it's hard to think about these things, but I certainly intend to say that I'm going to vote to move this forward. I also let me just ask if any of my other commissioners have anything to say. Want to comment?
It's my understanding that Consolidated Edison does not agree with everything that's in the NTSB report or everything that is going to come out in the staff report. We will give Con Ed a full and fair opportunity to make its case on the issues of whether they violated our rules and what were the causes of this horrible incident, and then we'll make our decision. But I'd like to take this opportunity to urge the public, once again, as we've been doing all along, if you smell gas, report it. If you don't know how to report it, call 911. It's not clear that earlier reporting would have prevented this horrible tragedy, but it is possible. So please be vigilant.
Thank you. Commissioner Berman?
I concur with your comments on moving forward with the order to show cause. I also want to, pause to remember the families and the victims, but also the emergency responders who work tirelessly. It is important for us, as Commissioner Sayer talked about reminding folks that if they do smell gas, the message really is simple. If you smell gas, act fast. There are a few things to keep in mind. Leave the premises immediately. Do not do anything to create a spark, such as lighting a match, turning appliances on or off, using a phone or cell phone, starting a car, or using a doorbell. After you're in a safe area from the smell, call 911 or your utility. Call even if the gas odor is faint or if you're not sure if it is a gas smell. Don't assume someone else has called, and you can report anonymously. Thank you.
Commissioner Cabrera.
I have a question. Usually it's the Con Ed employees who have the availability of those small meters that detect gas odors. How much does one of those meters cost?
Right now, there is a commercially available methane detectors available at like Home Depot and Lowe's from $45 on up. They're better than nothing, but there's a lot of work being done into coming up with a standard and essentially putting out a next generation device that would be much more reliable as far as not giving false positives or false negatives.
The reason I ask that question is I agree that we still have a long way to go with smell something, make a call right away. And I'm thinking that possibly having emergency responders who are in neighborhoods, police officers, fire department members, have the availability of also having those devices so that it's not only the utility that would be the one in the neighborhood who, again, may detect something just on a regular call of duty someplace. We try to learn things from horrible incidents like this, and it's always about lessons learned. However, there's not enough money out there to pay for a lost life, nor fix those people who were horrifically damaged for the rest of their lives. So I think that, in moving forward, we also need to think about what other ways are there to, again, gain more attention to what is possibly laying out there waiting to happen. And I thank all of you. Our briefings were fabulous and very professional and also very emotional. So I think we're all emotional here today.
Thank you. And I know that staff is working with all the utilities to look at different technologies like methane detectors, and I think that the Gas Research Council group is also working on technologies. I think we all agree that it's time for us to start thinking about how do we stop having to rely on just individuals, and how do we use technologies better to get there. I also want to note, in addition, that while we start with this proceeding, it was, the company, to my knowledge, has always been fully cooperative with the staff in their investigations. I also know that immediately after the incident, the companies began working with the city to look for ways to get things done better. And so while we are going to proceed, and as Commissioner Sayer said, we are going to ask for the company to answer the staff's investigation. I do want to make it clear, and it didn't pass us by, is how the fact that Con Ed immediately began responding and looking to make sure that it was doing the right thing. So that I think is important as well. With that, let me move the vote. All those in favor in proceeding with the show cause proceedings, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, we will commence the proceeding. Raj, I do know that you had a number of staff who are involved here that ordinarily don't come in front of the proceeding, and come to the commission. I do want to note my appreciation. It was a significant staff, a significant amount of work, and obviously in difficult circumstances. So I'd like to thank them, but could you please indicate who they were?
Yes, Chair. And as you said, this is a tough investigation. While there's a human side to it, there's also an enormous amount of technical analysis that went into determining the root cause so we can do lessons learned to minimize future possibilities. So let me recognize the staff members for their hard work on this investigation. As you said, this is probably one of the biggest gas safety investigations this department ever conducted. Took nearly a year and a half for this effort. As Kevin mentioned, it touched most of the gas safety staff, as well as several folks in the council's office and the Office of Consumer Services. Excuse me. I'd like to especially recognize staff members Chris Stulicki, Suresh Thomas, Arpit Mehta, Sergey Pashani, Jonathan Mercurio, Mark Stubell, Rani Chow, Kevin Spicer, and Cindy McCarran from the Office of Electric, Gas, and Water, and Diane Dean and Jane Cisrani from Council's Office, excuse me, and Erin Odell Keller and Lorna Gillings from the Office of Consumer Services for their effort on the East Harlem investigation. And also thanks to Kim Harriman and Tom Congdon for their guidance throughout this process. And a special thank to you, Chair, for your extraordinary support to staff during the event and after.
Thanks, Raj. So we're going to move on. I also thought that because we had other gas safety items that we've been under investigation, I know the commission is, wanted to get up to speed on where we are and the progress. I've asked Cindy to provide us an update on the other items. So that's Cindy. You have, I think there are two that you're going to update us on that we commenced. These were other investigations we did after other incidents, and I think it was important that we see where they are in the process.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Chair Zibelman, and good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Excuse me. Item 101B is an update on the status of two other gas safety initiatives begun by the Commission in 2014. The two proceedings are Case 11G0565, which involved the investigation of an incident on Joseph Street in Horseheads in 2011. I'll refer to that as the Joseph Street incident. And Case 14G0212, which is the investigation of plastic fusion training and qualifications in the wake of the East Harlem incident that Kevin referenced in his presentation. The Joseph Street incident was caused by an improper repair to damage believed to be done by a third party to a natural gas service line to a residence in New York State Electric and Gas, or NYSEG's, service territory without NYSEG's knowledge. The damage is believed to have been caused when water or sewer infrastructure was installed in the 1970s, some 20 years after the gas line was installed. The newer infrastructure in question was installed deeper than the gas lines, so that excavation was done around and under the gas lines. Upon investigation, NYSEG determined that many other service lines in Horseheads had been similarly damaged, and so that NYSEG then replaced those service lines. And as a result of the incident, the Commission ordered all New York State gas local distribution companies, or LDCs, to survey their systems to determine if similar problems might exist in their communities, and then to assess the safety risk and to develop a remediation plan. The LDCs worked with the local municipalities to determine those areas where infrastructure had been installed after and below natural gas lines. Many also used a subject matter expert, the Gas Technology Institute, which is also known as GTI, to help develop a statistically random sampling methodology to assess third-party damage to installed gas facilities. The results indicate that there is no evidence of widespread latent third-party damage to the gas distribution system beyond that found in NYSEG. NYSEG has found some additional damage in the Elmira area and is in the process of replacing about 2,000 service lines there. National Grid is also investigating the cause of damages found at 4 isolated locations. There does not appear to be notable risk associated with latent third-party damages for any utility except NYSEG, who again has taken actions to address the concern. And the majority of the LDCs indicate that analysis of third-party damages will be incorporated into their distribution integrity management plans on a going forward basis. These plans require the LDCs to monitor known threats to their systems, such as excavation, and work to mitigate perceived risks to public safety. Coming to the second investigation in the plastic fusion proceeding, which Kevin also referenced in his remarks, that one came out of the East Harlem incident. The commission ordered the LDCs to review their employee qualification procedures for performing plastic fusion and qualifications for compliance with state regulations, and if any non-compliance was found, to report back on the LDC's actions to address the non-compliance. In addition, the Commission asked the LDCs to assess any increased safety risk as a result of potential noncompliance and to develop a remediation plan to address the risk. Staff had discovered Con Edison was not in compliance with certain elements of the state regulations, so the Commission ordered Con Edison to report on its actions to address the situation. More specifically, Con Edison had not been destructively testing a sample of an employee or contractor's work to verify integrity during employee requalification for plastic fusion. And in addition, Con Edison was also not requalifying employees in a timely manner. When this situation was first discovered in May 2014, Con Ed immediately ceased all plastic fusion work until all employees and contractors were properly tested and qualified. Of the remaining 17 LDCs in the state, there were no violations found at 12 of them. For the other 5, the utilities found instances of noncompliance which were limited in scope, and mainly because some LDCs had allowed too much time to lapse before requalifying employees or contractors, and or some had not conducted the proper testing, such as the destructive testing, during the requalifying process. These LDCs, again, all stopped plastic fusion for all employees not properly qualified until they were able to administer the proper testing. In terms of risk assessment and remediation plans, all the affected LDCs submitted assessment and remediation plans. The assessments consisted of a combination of random sampling, which considered evaluation of all plastic fusions, targeted sampling, which considered specific fusions performed by known workers not properly qualified, and opportunistic sampling, which considered evaluation of fusions encountered during other types of normal operations. For some of the LDCs found to be in noncompliance, the population of fusions performed by persons not properly qualified was relatively small. So a statistically significant random sample size was 100 fusions or less. The LDCs then excavated those sample fusions and inspected them visually. If they did not pass the visual inspection, they were then removed, replaced with acceptable work, and the cutout fusion was brought to their lab for testing. 4 LDCs have completed their assessment and remediation plans. Again, they found very limited instances of plastic fusions which did not pass visual inspection, but in all cases they did pass destructive testing at those LDCs. And again, they repaired anything that they encountered that was not visually acceptable. One LDC is still in the remediation phase of its plan, but is expected to be completed in 2016. And then Con Ed is still in the assessment phase of its plan, as it had the largest total population of fusions to investigate. They have hired an expert statistician to assist in developing a truly random sample of installations that need to be excavated and assessed. They've begun that process, but they need additional time. Con Ed expects to complete this in 2016 and then begin remediation if it's found to be necessary. It should be noted that all companies, including those that had no compliance issues, are performing assessments of all fusions exposed during other work. The changes directed by the Commission earlier this year, requiring all LDCs to maintain records on plastic fusion going forward, as well as a second visual inspection of all plastic fusion performed, and inspection of all plastic fusion uncovered during the normal course of work, will further ensure quality control and assurance going forward. In summary, both the Horseheads and East Harlem incidents raised safety concerns. The Commission ordered the LDCs to assess risk and develop remediation plans. Except for some work remaining at NYSEG, the LDC's work is completed in responding to the Commission order resulting from the Horseheads incident. Also, except for Con Edison, the LDC's work is completed in responding to the Commission order resulting from the East Harlem incident. This concludes my remarks, and I'll be happy to take any questions. And of course, I have my heavy hitters here, Kevin and Chris, if I can't answer a question.
That was not a comment about your weight. So any questions for Cindy? Or anyone else? Commissioner Bruno? Or comments?
Thank you very much for that update. I think, like before, with talking about if you smell gas, act fast, it's appropriate here to talk about our one-call notification systems. And, this is sort of a reminder that excavators and contractors under state law are required to call one of the state's toll-free one-call centers before starting any excavation or digging project. We have two in New York. New York 811 is the one-call notification system serving New York City and Long Island, and Dig Safely New York is the other, serving the remainder of the state. And when calling you can simply dial 811. You could also go on their websites, which gives information, including what the current law is and frequently asked questions, as well as how to take advantage of training programs. New York-811.com or digsafelynewyork.com. I'm really have been focused on the one-call notification systems and looking at how folks work collaboratively together with these two. Both of them have been in existence for many years and are constantly refining and improving their systems. And it's, for me, important to also look at ways that we can help. I know the Northeast Gas Association with their member utilities have been really working hard in looking at help with better implementation of the 811 system and working directly not only with staff but with the two one-call communication centers. And I think for us, we should really make sure that we're giving them as much attention to that and support. And, I know that the Northeast Gas Association also has, through its NYSERC nonprofit collaborative research and development demonstration organization, is dedicated to looking at ways to do R&D to improve gas safety issues. And it really, and we also have a current pilot program that we're working with NYSERC and one of the utilities on. So for all of that, I think it's just a reminder again about the 811 and call before you dig. And while it's mandated for excavators and contractors, homeowners can also take advantage of it. I I don't have a husband who does work on his own, so we've always been blessed with the contractors that we do hire, making sure that they are calling 811. But even for something like putting in an in-ground basketball hoop or a mailbox, it's important to make sure that you call 811 beforehand. So thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Cindy. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. And before I ask for votes or comments, I did want a couple updates just on matters. So during the last couple of weeks, I issued a one commissioner order with respect to the Astral matter before us today, and I've asked Luann to give us an update on the staff's investigation into Astral. So, Luann, could you proceed?
Great. So, good morning. Since the November 6th, 2015 order suspending Astral Energy's authority to enroll customers, and also in accordance with the October 15 show cause order, Astral filed its 30-day response on Monday. It's about 70 pages long. So, staff, including Robin Taylor and Chris Bosey, are currently reviewing the response, and we will work with Astral to resolve any deficiencies. However, before Astral can start marketing again in New York, it will require commission action.
Thank you. Any questions for Luann on that? The other item I wanted is that we have item 562, which is the area codes 212 area code relief. And if you all recall, I spent last weekend in Tennessee with my Tennessee grandchildren, so I'm yawling still. We had an item regarding area code 315, and I thought it'd be helpful for Peter to give us a quick update.
Yes, good morning. In July, the commission did approve the new area code overlay for 315 in order to ensure an orderly and timely implementation and avoid any disruption that would result from the unavailability of numbers, but wanted to make sure that the projected exhaust date, which had been up and down over the past several years, was as the commission forecasted it to be back in July. And so the North American Number Administrator did provide its most recent forecast in October, and that forecast does remain with the same exhaust date. So there has been no change, and the plans are proceeding, and we will continue to monitor the reports that we do get from the North American numbering plan on both 315 and 212.
So we'll, as we did with 212, before we actually move ahead with implementation, we'll make sure that the status is the same.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, with that, do any of the commissioners want to recuse from voting on any of the items of the consent agenda? Any further comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to then move to a vote. All those in favor of the recommendations on the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, and there being none, the recommendations are adopted. Secretary Burgess, is there anything more in front of us today?
There's nothing more for today. The next commission session is on December 17th in Albany.
Okay. I wish everybody a very safe and happy Thanksgiving, and look forward to seeing you in December.